The pregnancy test wasn't mine. I found it on a Monday morning while cleaning out the cabinet under the sink in our guest bathroom. It was shoved way in the back, wedged between an old roll of paper towels and a nearly empty bottle of hand soap. Someone had tried to hide it, but not very well. The packaging was torn open, and the test itself still had that unmistakable faint pink stain. 2 lines, clear as day. No room for doubt. I stood there for almost a full minute, my hands still gripping the cabinet door, eyes locked on that little plastic stick, like maybe if I stared long enough it would just disappear. But it didn't. And the truth didn't go anywhere either. It sat right there in white plastic and blurred ink. Elena and I weren't trying to have a baby. Hell, we hadn't even been intimate in almost 4 months. She was always tired, always busy, always saying it wasn't the right time, headaches, stress, just not in the mood. At first, I blamed work. Long hours, deadlines, the usual grind, but over time, I could feel it, something was off. And now I was holding something that couldn't possibly belong to us. I didn't say anything. I didn't scream or break anything or storm upstairs demanding answers. I just placed the test back exactly where I found it, careful not to leave a trace, closed the cabinet, wiped my hands, walked into the kitchen, made coffee. I didn't need confirmation. I already knew, but I needed proof. Elena started pulling away sometime in early spring. At first, it was subtle, gentle shakes of the head when I'd try to get close at night. She said she was tired. Too many deadlines. Sometimes she'd throw in a physical excuse, but most of the time, it was just a quiet, "Not tonight," and I didn't push. I'm not the kind of guy who demands or pressures. My wife had every right to say no. I respected that. But then it became routine. She started going to bed before me, waking up earlier, skipping breakfast together, bit by bit. The small things we used to share just stopped happening. I honestly couldn't even remember the last time we were truly close. Maybe my birthday in January, or before that Elena worked at a cosmetics company. She once told me work was crazy, something about a new influencer campaign that needed close attention, but the way she buried herself in her job started to feel off. Last-minute work trips, late-night meetings with no clear purpose, long showers after midnight, always locking the bathroom door with that soft click, like she didn't want to wake me, but maybe didn't want me walking in either. I started noticing her phone more. Not snooping. I didn't even know her new passcode. But something had changed. She never left it unattended. Not even for a second. She carried it from room to room, into the bathroom, even into the shower. She used to leave it on the kitchen counter while cooking. Not anymore. Now, if a message came in, she'd turn away, covering the screen with her palm. One time, I caught a name pop up, Daniel. Logistics. I asked casually. "Who's Daniel?" She brushed it off, said he worked in shipping, then changed the subject like it was nothing. I've never been the jealous type. I always believed in privacy, even in marriage. But after standing in that bathroom for 20 minutes, holding a pregnancy test that couldn't possibly be mine, something cracked. I didn't know what Elena was hiding, but I knew I had to find out. And this time, I wasn't going to ask. I wasn't going to let her lie to me with calm smiles and reasonable-sounding excuses. I was going to do the one thing she never expected me to do. I was going to start watching. I started with the simplest thing, the trash. From that morning on, I paid closer attention when cleaning up, not in some frantic, obsessive way, but with quiet observation. Crumpled paper tossed too quickly, receipts stuffed deep into grocery bags. The kinds of details you'd normally overlook unless you know what you're looking for. And I did. The first week, nothing. But on day 8, I found it. A crumpled receipt from Victoria Lane, a high-end boutique up north in Seattle. The items were clear: 1 silk lingerie set, 2 imported scented candles, and a bottle of Tom Ford cologne. I don't wear Tom Ford, and Elena has never bought expensive lingerie just to wear it alone. Still, I didn't confront her. I just folded the receipt neatly and tucked it into the back of my desk drawer somewhere she never looked. One night, I casually asked why her showers had been so long lately. She laughed and said she was trying out a new shampoo with essential oils that helped her relax. The answer was just vague enough to avoid suspicion, but too flimsy to make me believe it. I started watching her schedule. I took a photo of the weekly planner she taped to the fridge. Then I cross-checked it with her car's driving history. Elena had synced her Google Calendar with the vehicle's control app. We set that up together last year, and she never changed the login. She didn't think I'd ever look. The following week, I tracked her route, twice. She said she had lunch meetings with distributors, but her car stopped near a boutique hotel in Fremont, nowhere near the usual distribution zone. And both times, all I got from her were short texts, "Have you eaten yet?" That's when the outline started to take shape. A man. Someone close enough to make her feel safe. Important enough for her to risk everything for a couple of hours a week. And then, Daniel Logistics. Daniel showed up again. This time, I saw his name in a calendar sync she accidentally left open on the iPad in the kitchen. Coffee meeting. Friday. Location: a little cafe on Leary Way, about 30 minutes from home. I didn't need to speculate anymore. Things were starting to fall into place. That Friday, I called in sick. Got up early. Made coffee like nothing was wrong. Pretended to scroll the news while Elena curled her hair and picked out a dress. It was one I'd never seen before. She said it was old, but I caught a glimpse of the tag still attached, which she hurriedly stuffed into her purse when she thought I wasn't looking. I didn't call her out. I kissed her cheek as she walked out the door. 10 minutes later, I got in my car, kept a safe distance, followed her from a few cars back. I didn't know what exactly I'd find that day, but I knew I needed to see it with my own eyes. The cafe was tucked into a quiet corner off a small intersection. No big sign, no buzz, just a few wooden tables outside the window, shaded by tall trees lining the street. I parked across from it, sat in my car with a lukewarm cup of coffee in hand, and kept my eyes on the entrance. Elena showed up right on time. She stepped out of her car carrying a beige handbag and wearing that coat she usually picked when she didn't want to draw attention. But she still stood out, hair down, fresh blowout, new heels. Every step she took was deliberate. The man arrived a few minutes later. Tall, sharp, with a walk that said he was used to getting where he wanted without hesitation. He placed a hand gently on Elena's lower back as they walked in together. I couldn't see his face clearly, but their body language said enough. No distance. They didn't sit across from each other, they sat on the same side of the table, leaning in close, heads tilted toward one another. Elena laughed. The kind of laugh I hadn't heard in a long time, one I used to know like the back of my hand. I didn't feel jealous. I felt something colder, like a knife dragging slowly through my chest. They sat there for nearly 40 minutes. I took note of the man's license plate, snapped a few photos from the car. Each click of the camera felt like a tiny incision, not for social media, not for some dramatic confrontation, just so I could remind myself later that this wasn't all in my head. The betrayal had shape. It had a name, a date, a time, when they left the cafe. They didn't head back toward her office like she told me she would. They turned left, deeper into Fremont. I followed from a distance. At first, I thought maybe they were going to lunch, but then her car turned into a small lot next to a white, 3-story building. The sign out front read, Pacific Women's Wellness Clinic. I parked 2 blocks down, sat in silence, gripping the steering wheel while the minutes ticked by, each one dragging like a quiet panic attack. They walked in together, side by side, not once looking around. Elena held a thin folder. Her other hand rested gently on Daniel's arm. Yes, Daniel. I was sure of it now. Same face I'd seen on her company's website, co-founder. I stayed in my car and waited. Every minute was a slow burn of realization I didn't want to accept, but already knew was true. Over an hour later, they came out, Elena was smiling, one hand resting lightly over her stomach. Daniel said something, and she laughed, really laughed. They stood close for a moment. No kiss, no hug, but the way they looked at each other, that closeness said everything. I didn't get out. I didn't rush toward them. I didn't scream. I just pulled out my phone, hit record, filmed them walking out of that clinic together. Her laugh floated faintly through the background noise. It was clear, undeniable, proof. After they drove off, I replayed the video, watched the frame freeze mid-motion. Elena looked happy, but it wasn't a happiness I recognized. It was a happiness I wasn't a part of. I didn't go home right away. I stopped at a gas station, splashed cold water on my face, and sat in the car for another 20 minutes. I needed to be sure I wouldn't do anything stupid. No texts, no calls, no angry outburst. I wasn't looking for answers. I was waiting for the right moment. And when it came, I was going to be the one in control. Elena made the reservation 2 days in advance. She said she wanted to do something special for our 5-year anniversary. I nodded. Didn't ask why. Didn't ask why now. Of all times. She suddenly remembered our anniversary when, for months, I'd felt like nothing more than a shadow in her life. The restaurant sat by Lake Union. We'd been there once, back when we first started dating. Warm lights, overpriced wine, soft jazz playing just loud enough to feel intentional. She wore a simple black dress, hair down. She looked beautiful, but different. The kind of beautiful strangers might remember, but to me, she looked like someone I used to know. We sat down. She ordered a glass of Chardonnay. I asked for water. She talked about work client pitches, a new colleague, how exhausting everything had been lately. I nodded, smiled, played the role of the attentive husband. I didn't poke holes in the script, didn't let anything slip through my expression. Just as the main course arrived, she looked at me and said I'd seemed quieter lately. Asked if something was wrong. I told her work had been a bit draining. She tilted her head, smiled faintly, and suggested maybe we plan a trip somewhere like Bali or Santorini. I nodded again, still smiling. Then came dessert, creme brulee her favorite, as the waiter set it down. Elena reached into her purse and pulled out a small box wrapped in silver tissue paper and tied with a white ribbon. She placed it in front of me, eyes sparkling like she was about to set off fireworks. She said, "Happy anniversary," and that I'd be surprised. I undid the ribbon, opened the box. Inside was a pregnancy test. 2 pink lines. No mistake. The exact same brand. Same type I'd found under the sink that Monday morning. Elena looked at me, radiant. She whispered that I was going to be a dad. She squeezed my hand, said it was something she never thought would happen, but now, here it was. Real. She said everything would change, that we were about to start a new chapter as a family. I looked into her eyes. For a long time, like I was trying to find something real buried deep in there. Then I smiled, gently, and asked, "Are you sure this is real?" She nodded without hesitation, still smiling. I nodded too, as if I believed her, as if I was moved. Then I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone, set it on the table, turned the screen toward her, pressed play. The video started, no sound, but the footage was crystal clear. Elena and Daniel, walking out of the women's clinic, her hand resting on her stomach, his arm brushing hers, the way they looked at each other like the world didn't exist outside that moment. The clip paused just as they walked off together, close too close for 2 people who were just co-workers. She stared at the screen, didn't blink. The spoon in her hand stopped halfway to her mouth. Her expression shifted slowly, like her brain was trying to hold her face together before everything collapsed. I didn't say a word. After a minute, I picked up the phone, turned off the video, and slid it back into my pocket. Then I looked at her. I told her I knew. I'd known since I found the test under the bathroom sink. that I'd been watching every move, every shift in behavior since then, that I saw the receipt for the lingerie and the Tom Ford cologne, that I followed her, tracked the places she said she was going and where she actually ended up, that everything became crystal clear the moment I saw her walk out of that clinic with her co-founder. She whispered my name. I raised my hand slightly, like signaling the end of a meeting. I told her I wasn't here for explanations. She could save the story for Daniel, or maybe even herself. I just wanted her to know I wasn't blind, I wasn't stupid, and I wasn't silent because I was weak. I was silent because I needed to be sure. The smile left her face completely. She turned away, pretended to wipe her mouth, but there was nothing there. I looked at the candlelight flickering between us, thought about 5 years together, all the little things I did to keep this marriage from falling apart. Every time she turned her back to me and said she was tired. Every dinner I ate alone while she came home after 10, smelling like a stranger's cologne. I stood up, calm, no rush. I told her she could finish the dessert if she wanted. I'd call an Uber. Before I left, I placed a small piece of paper on the table. On it was Sarah's email, Daniel's wife. I told Elena I wasn't sure if she still had enough decency to tell Sarah the truth. But I did. She called my name as I turned away. I didn't answer. I walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind the candlelight, the soft jazz, and a table full of untouched food. The breeze off the lake was cold, but I felt light. For the first time in months, not because I had left Elena, but because I had finally walked away from the version of myself I no longer recognized. Elena moved out 2 days after that night. There were no tears, no apology. Just a short message, "I'll stop by to grab a few personal things. I won't bother you." I didn't reply. When she came, I wasn't home. I left her alone with the wardrobe, with the wedding photos still hanging in the hallway, and with the kind of silence that feels like a stone dropped in the middle of a quiet kitchen. She left around 6 p.m. I knew because the doorbell cam sent a notification. Her face passed across my phone screen, pale, distant, stripped of anything that once reminded me of the woman I fell in love with a few days earlier. I'd found Sarah Vu, Daniel's wife, on LinkedIn. Her account was public. I saw a picture of their family in a pine forest, 2 young kids, a golden lab running between them. It took me nearly an hour to write the message. I didn't dramatize, didn't pour out my feelings. I just gave her what she needed to know. A few photos. A short clip of them leaving the clinic. Dates, times. And at the very end, I figured you had the right to know. Sarah replied the next morning. It was short and sharp. "Thank you," I suspected, but I didn't think it was this clear. "I'll handle it quick and clean." A week after I sent that email, I got word from someone I knew, an old acquaintance from Elena's company. We'd met once at a holiday party and bonded over baseball. He told me Daniel had been suspended. His profile disappeared from the company newsletter. He was nowhere to be found on the following week's partner calls. The truth was, Daniel hadn't just lost a fling. He was about to lose everything. His position at the company had little to do with merit. His father-in-law, a major shareholder, had been his protector, the one who'd opened the door for him, fast-tracking him into leadership from day one. That perfect family image. It wasn't just branding. It was currency, reputation, leverage. The unspoken requirement to survive in the world he lived in. So when it all started to unravel, Daniel didn't fight for Elena. He fought to keep his seat. Sarah never raised her voice in public. She didn't make noise online. She did something far more effective. She gathered everything I had sent her, the photos, the video, the emails, and forwarded it all to the company's ethics board. She included a formal request for an internal investigation, outlining the improper relationship between 2 senior employees. But more than that, she added one final detail. Elena wasn't just sleeping with a married man while being married herself. She was pregnant with his child. It was a precision strike, quiet, devastating, and irreversible. Daniel called Elena a few days later, not to offer comfort, to end things. They met at some other cafe, not the one they used to visit. No warm touches, no fond looks, just two adults sitting across from each other, cleaning up the wreckage of their own decisions. I wasn't there, but I know Elena expected something else. She thought Daniel would choose her, thought the pregnancy would be enough of a reason, enough to justify everything, enough to make him leave his wife, to prove this wasn't just some passing affair. But Daniel didn't choose her. He didn't leave his wife. He didn't offer any kind of fresh start. He apologized in that clipped, emotionless way successful men do. Brief, neatly packaged, regret without responsibility. Elena tried to hold on. She talked about the baby, about the kind of father Daniel should be, about how she couldn't do it alone. But Daniel stayed silent. No promises, no plans. He handed her an envelope with $15,000 inside and told her it was time to end this. Then he stood up and walked away. It all fell apart faster than she imagined. The company's ethics board issued a formal request for her to explain herself. There was no room for defense, no appeals, just two options: resign voluntarily or be terminated for professional misconduct. Elena resigned, not out of pride, but because there was no other path left. She cleaned out her desk in silence. No farewell lunch, no goodbye emails. No one stopped by to wish her well. She left that building, the one she used to boast about, the one she thought she'd grow into, with nothing. It took just 3 days for it all to disappear. Someone still working at the company told me what she looked like in the end. He said she looked different, like someone who had walked away from a car crash but hadn't yet realized both legs were gone. Daniel stayed. Sarah, despite everything, hadn't filed for divorce. Maybe because of the kids. Maybe because of image. I don't know. I didn't ask. But I know this. Elena gave up everything for a man who refused to stand beside her. And when it all came crashing down, no one was there to help her up. She lost her husband. She lost her career. She lost her lover. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel anger anymore. All I felt was silence. The kind of silence that sits deeper than forgiveness. I filed for divorce through my attorney. I didn't ask for anything, no fight over assets, no drama over what belonged to who. The house had been mine before the marriage. My personal account stayed untouched. I even left her a small portion from our joint savings, just enough for her to start over. If she truly wanted to. I didn't need a courtroom to decide who was right or wrong. Elena knew what she had done, and I had nothing left to hold on to. We had 5 years together, and the last 3 months were more than enough to show me that some stories deserve a quiet ending. Dragging them out only adds weight to wounds that are already bleeding. Elena signed quickly. There was no handwritten letter, no phone call to explain herself, just a gray envelope mailed back with her completed forms. Her signature looked a little shaky, but it was still hers. We finalized the divorce on a Friday. A short, clinical meeting at a downtown office with both lawyers present. Her pregnancy was starting to show. She looked worn out, like the weight of what she'd done was finally catching up with her. No one said much. We signed. It was over in less than 20 minutes. Outside. Seattle gave us its usual drizzle. I didn't bring an umbrella. I let the cold drops hit my shoulders as I walked to my car. The chill grounded me more than any kind of comfort ever could. The week after that, I put the house on the market. I couldn't stay in those rooms anymore, rooms that had absorbed too many lies, too many midnight showers that came with silence and locked doors. I didn't need to erase the past. I just needed a new beginning. I moved to Portland, Oregon, rented a small one-bedroom apartment near a park. I started working remotely, got into a steady routine, waking up early, running in the mornings, eating dinner at a normal hour. I taught myself to cook again. The first thing I made was lentil soup, simple, warm, and intentionally disconnected from any memory of her. I also cleaned up my online life, deleted old photos, unfollowed people who only reminded me of the version of myself that once held on to something that was never real. 3 months after the divorce, I got a postcard in the mail, no return address, just a photo of an empty beach and one sentence on the back. I'm sorry. For everything. I fed it straight into the shredder. Not out of spite, but because, to me, it was already over. About a year later, I heard about Elena through an old friend. She had left Seattle and moved back in with her parents in the suburbs. She gave birth and leaned on them to help raise the baby while trying to get back on her feet. She wasn't working in media anymore. Her reputation didn't survive what happened. In advertising and PR circles, stories like hers don't just disappear, especially when both people involved were still married. Daniel managed to keep his job, mostly because his wife stood by him. He cut contact with Elena completely. Their story ended in silence. No messages, no closure, no one taking responsibility. Elena sent out applications to 3 different companies. No one responded. Not because she wasn't qualified, but because Google never forgets. She tried to restart her career with a personal branding consultancy online. Her first post lasted less than a week before the comments were flooded with reminders of her past. People don't easily forgive women who break up 2 families. Men get away with more. But women, especially ones like Elena, carry the heavier burden. I didn't feel good hearing any of it. I didn't feel like she deserved more. I just felt nothing. She lost her friends, her job, her affair partner, and whatever was left of the family she used to have. Even if it was only in name. She lives quietly now. No social media, no meetups, just part-time shifts at an organic store, staying far away from anything familiar. I don't know if she regrets it, but I do believe that every morning she wakes up carrying a specific kind of silence, the kind that comes from knowing you burned the last bridge with your own hands. And maybe that silence is the only fair sentence, the one no court can issue, but life always does.